and welcome to my channel Simplified Dentistry with Dr. Maheen K, and today we are going to discuss major and minor connectors. So, starting with the major connectors. Major connectors basically provide rigidity. They unite all the components of RPD and they are placed on the immobile tissues. Now, what does this basically mean? Starting with the rigidity. Rigidity is basically the primary function of major connectors, and this is very critical because it is repeatedly asked in the board exam, and it is definitely one of the questions that is asked in the board exam. So this is to be remembered that what is the primary function of major connectors? It is to provide rigidity, right? Then unity. What does the unity means? Unity means that all the components are attached to the major connector. How? Like the meshwork, right? The rest and the minor connector, right? So all these components are united through major connectors, right? And then lastly, immobile tissues. Now what does this mean? This means that the major connector is always placed on the non-movable tissues. It is not supposed to be placed on any structure that moves, right? For example, here's a figure in which the major connector is not placed on the movable tissue, rather instead on the bounded tissue, like the palate here, right? Okay, so first and foremost design is the complete palatal plate, and this is most rigid of all the designs, right? It is the one that design which has the most rigidity, right? And the indications of this design is posterior missing teeth bilaterally. This we can say the Kennedy's class 1, right? In which they are bilaterally missing teeth, right? Periodontally compromised teeth, shallow vault, flat or flabby ridge. So these are the conditions in which the complete palatal plate is indicated, right? Again, this is one of the most rigid designs, and it is mostly indicated especially in the Kennedy's class 1, in which there is posterior missing teeth bilaterally, periodontally compromised teeth, shallow vault and a flat flabby ridge. In this image we can see that the bilaterally missing teeth is there, and that means this is again a Kennedy's class 1 where there is an indication of complete palatal plate. Then we have the horseshoe shaped design, which is considered to be the least rigid of all the designs, and it is only used if it has a large torus, only when there is a large palatal torus, right? And what happens in cases with complete denture patients, if there is a large torus, it has to be removed. However, this is not the case in major connectors. What we can do is we in RPD we can give a horseshoe shaped design which can surpass or it may not interact with the palatal torus, right? With the major connector. Here is a diagram. In this figure we can see the blue line demarcating the palatal tori, and the horseshoe shaped major connector is placed, and we can see that the major connector does not bypass or interact with the palatal torus. So the next design is the palatal strap, in which there is a metal strap, and this metal strap is from left to right, and in this all the connectors, major connectors would pass through the midline and form a right angle. So this would pass through the midline and thus forming the right angle, right? And this is basically true. Now beading. Beading is basically an exclusive maxillary major connector, right? And it is exclusive because it involves scribbing of 0.5 mm groove, rounded groove actually, right? And this groove is basically in the cast at the borders, सही है, of the major connector, right? And then it adds strength and maintains tissue contact. Why are we saying this? It maintains tissue contact because it prevents impaction of the food impaction, right? So in this image we can see the line references the border of that major connector. You think about the framework being fabricated on the master cast, and the metal would flow into these beaded lines and be a little thicker at the borders than they would be at the center, and this is what we want for added strength and firmer tissue contact so that the food is less likely to get trapped under this framework. So here my mic went off and I have to do a voiceover. So the mandibular major connectors, we can give the lingual bar and the lingual plate. These are given when the depth of the vestibule is equal to or greater than 7 mm. Now what is this depth of vestibule? This is basically the point between the lingual margin to the lingual frenum starts. This is the point where the lingual margin to the point where the lingual frenum starts, and this is known as the depth of the vestibule. This distance has to be equal to or greater than 7 mm, and it is important to remember for the dental board exam, right? And what happens basically is we can say that the lingual bar is the simplest and the most common form. Okay, so here is a lingual bar that is given in situation where the vestibule depth is equal to or greater than 7 mm. This figure over here is showing a lingual plate. Okay, then comes the labial bar. The mandibular major connector is given with the labial bar design when the canine is missing, right? Okay. Then there are unfavorable soft tissue contour, soft tissue contour, and there is questionable periodontal prognosis. Like the periodontal condition is not very well, and you believe that after the placement of any other design, there won't be a better periodontal condition. So we give the labial bar. So labial bar basically consists of a hinge and a lock design, which is also known as the swing lock design, right? So it is also known as the swing lock. Okay, so in this diagram we can see on the left side there is the hinge, and on the right side there is a lock mechanism, and hence it's also known as the swing lock bar or the labial bar, right? Lastly, we have the minor connectors, and in the minor connectors there is not much to remember, just that it connects the major connector to the rest seat, right? Indirect connector, indirect retainer, sorry, and the clasp. So minor connectors are responsible for connection of major connector to the rest seat, indirect retainer, and the clasp, right? This figure we can see how the minor connector connects the major connector to the rest seat and indirect retainers and the clasp assembly. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share and subscribe to my channel.